If Qui-Gon Jinn had killed Darth Maul during their fateful duel on Naboo, the trajectory of the galaxy far, far away would have been irrevocably altered. Qui-Gon's survival, coupled with Maul's demise, would not simply change the fate of a few individuals, but potentially reshape the entire narrative of the Star Wars saga. The repercussions of such an event ripple across the Jedi Order, the rise of the Sith, and the fragile balance of power that would eventually culminate in galactic tyranny. With Darth Maul struck down on Naboo, Qui-Gon Jinn would live to continue his mission of training Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon's belief in the boy's potential as the Chosen One, destined to bring balance to the Force, would remain unshaken. Unlike Obi-Wan Kenobi, whose training of Anakin was rooted in a sense of obligation and brotherly camaraderie, Qui-Gon's guidance would be marked by a profound sense of purpose. He saw Anakin not merely as a gifted Padawan, but as a pivotal piece in the cosmic struggle between light and dark. Under Qui-Gon's mentorship, Anakin's emotional development might have taken a different course. Qui-Gon, known for his unorthodox approach and defiance of the Jedi Council's rigidity, would have nurtured Anakin's instincts and passions while tempering them with wisdom and perspective. Rather than suppressing Anakin's attachments, Qui-Gon might have guided him to reconcile his feelings with the Jedi Code, fostering a more balanced emotional state. This would stand in stark contrast to the repression encouraged by the Council and later Palpatine's manipulation of Anakin's fear and anger. The Jedi Council, though wary of Qui-Gon's maverick tendencies, would likely have been forced to accept his role as Anakin's master. Qui-Gon's victory over Maul would serve as a testament to his capability, further cementing his status as one of the Order's most formidable knights. His continued insistence on Anakin's training as the will of the Force might have softened the Council's stance, allowing for a more unified effort to prepare the boy for his destiny. On the Sith side of events, Darth Sidious would be left to contend with the loss of his apprentice. Maul's death would force Sidious to accelerate his plans to find a new apprentice, possibly shifting his timeline for turning Count Dooku to the dark side. Without Maul's physical and martial presence, Sidious might focus more intently on Dooku, refining the role of the political figure who would galvanize the Separatists. Alternatively, Sidious might look elsewhere for a replacement, introducing a wholly different Sith apprentice to the saga and altering the dynamics of the dark side's resurgence. Meanwhile, the absence of Maul would have a profound impact on the political situation surrounding Naboo. With Maul's defeat, the Trade Federation would lose its enforcer, weakening their resolve and hastening the resolution of the Naboo crisis. This would bolster Queen Amidala's position as a capable leader, ensuring her continued influence in the Galactic Senate. Padmé's trajectory might also intersect differently with Anakin's if Qui-Gon were there to act as a stabilizing presence, emphasizing the importance of her role in Anakin's life while mitigating the dangerous intensity of his attachment. As the Clone Wars loomed on the horizon, Qui-Gon's survival would introduce an additional variable to the Jedi Council's decisions. Qui-Gon's skepticism of the Senate and his independent streak might lead him to question the circumstances surrounding the emergence of the Clone Army. Where many Jedi were blinded by their loyalty to the Republic, Qui-Gon's insights could unravel Sidious's machinations earlier than expected. His influence might not prevent the Clone Wars outright, but it could shift the Jedi's strategy, making them more cautious in their alliances and engagements. Anakin's growth under Qui-Gon's tutelage would inevitably alter his relationship with Palpatine. The Sith Lord's ability to exploit Anakin's insecurities and fears hinged largely on the boy's feelings of isolation and frustration. Qui-Gon's mentorship would provide Anakin with the emotional stability and moral compass to resist Palpatine's overtures. While the seeds of darkness might still linger within Anakin, Qui-Gon's guidance could prevent them from taking root as deeply as they did in the original timeline. The relationship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan would also evolve in meaningful ways. Obi-Wan, though initially resistant to Anakin's inclusion in the Jedi Order, would likely grow to respect his master's vision as he witnessed the boy's development. Freed from the burden of being Anakin's sole mentor, Obi-Wan could focus on his own growth as a Jedi, potentially emerging as a stronger and more independent figure within the Order. Together, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan could present a united front that might sway the Council toward more proactive measures against the looming Sith threat. As events unfolded, Qui-Gon's influence would resonate across Coruscant and beyond. The Jedi Council, though slow to adapt, might begin to embrace a broader perspective on the Force, spurred by Qui-Gon's success with Anakin. This philosophical shift could strengthen the Jedi Order, making it more resilient against the challenges of war and the manipulations of the Sith. With Qui-Gon alive, the Jedi might also uncover Sidious's identity earlier, disrupting his rise to power and potentially averting the fall of the Republic. Yet, even with Qui-Gon's survival, the future would not be without peril. The Force's balance is a delicate and dynamic phenomenon, and the Sith's return signaled a fundamental disturbance that could not be easily undone. Sidious, ever cunning and resourceful, would adapt to the loss of Maul and recalibrate his plans. The dark side's influence would persist, manifesting in new and unforeseen ways. The question of Anakin's ultimate destiny, whether as the Chosen One or as a Sith Lord, would remain a central point of tension in this altered timeline. As Qui-Gon continued to shape Anakin's path, the Jedi Order itself might undergo significant changes under his influence. Qui-Gon's deep connection to the living Force and his belief in following the will of the Force, even when it contradicted the Jedi Council's directives, would likely encourage a re-evaluation of the Order's practices. He was always skeptical of the Jedi's increasing entanglement with the political machinery of the Republic, and his survival might give him the opportunity to challenge their growing complacency. The Jedi, under Qui-Gon's leadership and example, could begin to detach themselves from their role as mere instruments of the Senate, rediscovering their roots as guardians of peace and justice. This shift could potentially prevent the Jedi from falling so easily into the trap of becoming generals in the Clone Wars. Instead of leading armies, the Jedi might adopt a more strategic and investigative role, focusing on uncovering the Sith's influence and addressing the deeper corruption within the Republic. Anakin, guided by Qui-Gon, might be shielded from the manipulations of Darth Sidious. Qui-Gon's intuition and wisdom would allow him to recognize the subtle threat posed by Palpatine, even if he could not immediately identify him as a Sith Lord. Qui-Gon's presence would likely diminish the Chancellor's access to Anakin, cutting off a critical avenue through which Sidious exerted his influence. Without the constant whispers of fear and ambition in his ear, Anakin could grow into a more balanced and self-aware Jedi. The dynamic between Anakin and Padme Amidala would also evolve in this new timeline. Qui-Gon's understanding of the importance of personal connections might lead him to counsel Anakin and Padme in a way that neither suppresses their feelings nor allows them to spiral into dangerous territory. He could serve as a mediator, helping them navigate the complexities of their relationship without resorting to secrecy or deceit. This open and honest approach could prevent many of the misunderstandings and missteps that ultimately contributed to Anakin's fall in the original timeline. Meanwhile, with Darth Maul eliminated, Darth Sidious would be forced to accelerate his search for a new apprentice. Count Dooku, already disillusioned with the Jedi and deeply skeptical of the Republic, would likely be brought fully into the fold much earlier. As Darth Tyrannus, Dooku's charisma and political acumen would make him a formidable replacement for Maul. However, Dooku's role might shift slightly in this timeline, as Sidious might rely more heavily on him to carry out the grander aspects of his plan, such as orchestrating the separatist movement and preparing the galaxy for war. The Clone Wars would still erupt, but with Qui-Gon's influence, the Jedi might approach the conflict with greater caution and insight. Instead of blindly leading the clone army into battle, they might focus on uncovering the true motives behind the war and the identity of the Sith orchestrating it. Qui-Gon's perspective could lead to a more strategic and less militaristic approach, potentially minimizing the Jedi's losses and preserving their integrity as peacekeepers rather than warriors. As the war raged on, Qui-Gon's presence might also bolster the efforts to expose the corruption within the Republic. His skepticism of the Senate and his unyielding belief in the Force's guidance would make him a natural ally to those who sought reform, such as Padme Amidala, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma. Together, they could work to counteract Palpatine's consolidation of power, slowing his rise to dictatorship and possibly even uncovering his true nature before it was too late. Anakin's development would remain a central focus of this altered timeline. With Qui-Gon's mentorship, he would be less prone to the destructive tendencies that plagued him in the original saga. His fear of loss, his anger, and his yearning for control would be tempered by Qui-Gon's wisdom and guidance. Instead of being consumed by his emotions, Anakin might learn to harness them constructively, becoming the Jedi that Qui-Gon believed he was destined to be. Yet, even in this more hopeful scenario, the struggle between light and dark would persist. The Force's balance is not a static state, but a dynamic process, constantly shifting and evolving. While Qui-Gon's survival and Maul's death would create new opportunities for the light side to prevail, the dark side would inevitably adapt and respond. Darth Sidious, a master of manipulation and deception, would not abandon his quest for ultimate power. His schemes would continue, albeit in a different form, and the galaxy would still face challenges and sacrifices on its journey toward balance. The outcome of this alternate timeline hinges on the choices made by its key players. If Qui-Gon, Anakin, and the Jedi Order could rise to the occasion, embracing change and confronting the darkness with clarity and purpose, they might succeed in averting the tragedies of the original timeline. However, the inherent unpredictability of the Force and the resilience of the Sith ensure that no victory would come easily or without cost. Qui-Gon's survival and Maul's death would undoubtedly alter the Star Wars saga in profound and far-reaching ways. The Jedi might find new strength and purpose, the Republic might resist its descent into tyranny, and Anakin Skywalker might fulfill his destiny as the chosen one without succumbing to the dark side. But the galaxy's fate would remain intertwined with the eternal struggle between light and dark, reminding us that even in a universe filled with possibilities, the battle for balance is never truly over.